Hare Krishna. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana-Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami Namine. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarini. So today, on the most auspicious occasion of the disappearance of our beloved spiritual master, His Divine Grace, Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, Gurudev, I offer my prostrated obeisances at His divine lotus feet and beg forgiveness for all of my offenses committed at His lotus feet. It was a great pleasure that Srila Gurudev, when he got the land at Govardhan, so he was very much pleased that he got a land with a building to establish an ashram there in memory of Srila Prabhupada. As we know that at the final days of Srila Prabhupada, just before his disappearance, he wanted to go to Govardhan and do Govardhan Parikrama on a bullock cart. Some disciples, they agreed to Srila Prabhupada's proposal, but some disciples, they disagreed because of their concern for Srila Prabhupada's health. That's why they started crying, and when Prabhupada came to know that, then understanding the concern of his dearmost disciples, Srila Prabhupada cancelled his Govardhan trip. So Srila Gurudev was one of the dearmost disciples who was very much concerned for Srila Prabhupada's health, and at that time he was also Srila Prabhupada's secretary. But anyway, Srila Prabhupada left this world after 3-4 days. And Srila Gurudev was thinking how to actually fulfill the desire of Srila Prabhupada. So when he got this land with a building at Govardhan, he was very happy. And that place was just next to Govardhan Hill, at the foothill of Govardhan, and with a palace of a king of Chhattarpur, Madhya Pradesh. Though the palace was in a dilapidated condition, still Srila Gurudev was very much interested to take that palace and make an ashram in memory of Srila Prabhupada. So the land of Govardhan ashram was registered on Varaha Dvadashi day, the day before Nityananda Trayodasi. And Srila Gurudev personally went to the registration office at Mathura And he also ordered me to take some Lakshmi with me to pay to the person who was representing the king of Chhatarpur. So myself and one of our god brother, Ramchandra Prabhu from Fiji, we both went in a auto rickshaw to the registration office and we delivered a bag of Lakshmi to Srila Gurudev. And the deal was completed. Then from there, from the registration office, Srila Gurudev told me to go to Govardhan and take possession of that palace. So myself and Ramchandra Prabhu, we both went to Govardhan in the evening of Bharadadasi day. And when we saw that place, it was all full of bushes around the palace. And the palace was completely in a dilapidated condition without water and electricity. So, and the possession we took that time, it was only 1/4 of that palace we took possession. And there are only 3 rooms. One was the king's room and 2 more rooms, 3 rooms. So anyway, we locked the palace and then we had not taken our belongings, so we came back to Vrindavan. And then around 10, 11 o'clock, we left Vrindavan with our belongings. And Ramchandra Prabhu and then Narayan Rishi Prabhu, also from Fiji, both accompanied me. So we arrived at Govardhan Palace around 11 o'clock at night, and it was all dark, there was no electricity in the building. And the rooms were all dusty, full of dust. And there were bushes outside of the building and inside also in the courtyard. And so many snakes and other animals were also living there. And no electricity and no water was also there. So somehow or other, in the darkness, we went to one of those rooms and we don't know what was in that room. We just spread our mat and we went to sleep at night. The morning we got up, there was no water to even wash our face. So we went to the nearby Gaudiya Math to use their facility to take bath. And while I was going to take bath, I heard that Srila Gurudev had arrived the next morning with some devotees. He had arrived there and Gurudev called me. So without taking bath, then I came to see Gurudev. And Gurudev had already told me that you should take charge of that place. So he called me. And then I was shivering in the cold because I was going to take bath. So Gurudev told one of the disciples to offer me a chadar. So I was wrapping the chadar. And then Gurudev first thing told me that you should prepare this room. That was a king's room. So you should prepare this room so I would come and stay here after the GBC meeting. And this was just before the GBC meeting. And then he took me around the garden, which was full of bushes. It was almost a jungle. And then first thing he told me that you should put a signboard here. And you should write in Hindi, not in English. That ISKCON Bhakti Vedanta Ashram. You should write this in Hindi on a signboard. And then Gurudev told me, because I don't want this place to be called as a Angrez Mandir. Like in Vrindavan, our Krishna Balaram Mandir is called Angrez Mandir by the locals, Brajvasis. So the signboard in Krishna Balaram Mandir was in English, and there are all English-speaking devotees living there. So local people, they were calling our Krishna Balaram temple as Angrez Mandir. So Gurudev told me that I don't want this place to be called a Angrez Mandir. So you put a signboard, and that should be in Hindi, and you write ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Ashram. So, of course, I did that. I put the signboard in Hindi, and since it was written in Hindi, everyone read that, and they became acquainted that this is ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Ashram. Before that, that place was known as Chhattarpur Palace, because that was the palace of King of Chhattarpur. So local people, they used to call it a Chhattarpur Palace, Mahal. So since I put the signboard in Hindi, ISKCON Bhaktivedanta Ashram, then people became acquainted, and then they started calling as Bhaktivedanta Ashram. So, and then Gurudev took me around in the garden and showed me the Tamal and Kadamba trees. There are many Tamal and Kadamba trees in the garden, and some are old and some new Tamal trees were also coming up. So Gurudev showed me, and then he instructed me that you should never cut these trees. So then Gurudev also expressed his desire that this place was built many hundreds of years ago, and this was all built by, not by cement. It was built by chuna, one type of molasses that was used to build the building at that time, and it was very strong. So Gurudev said that we want to use the same thing, same material to repair this building, to renovate this building. I don't want any cement here. So that was the instruction of Srila Gurudev. And then Gurudev left, and since he had told me to prepare his room, so I started repairing that room. And then there was no water, no electricity. Then first thing I did, went to the local municipality office. That was not municipality that time, that was a notified area council, NAC office, and got a connection for water. And then I also got another connection for electricity. So in that way, the minimum necessity, water and electricity, was arranged. And then I was expecting that Sri Gurudev would come after the GBC meeting, so I should make some preparation for him to come and stay. But that time, there was not enough time to prepare properly, so I had just purchased one bed, the local Brajbasi they use, that is made of some strings, some ropes. So that was the bed available that time. And when Gurudev came back after the GBC meeting, he also slept in that bed. He did not complain. And also, he preferred to sleep on the roof at night. So, in this way, Gurudev was sleeping on the roof, taking prasad on the roof. Very simple prasad he was taking, and we had no cooking arrangements that time, so we had a temporary cooking arrangement. And Gurudev loved that situation, the simplicity in the beginning we had there. So in this way, time passed, and then I prepared his room properly later on. And one time, Gurudev had come to Govardhan, and he was sleeping on the roof. Then in the middle of the night, the dog started barking. Then in the middle of the night, Gurudev called myself, and then his servant was also there, Gaurav Prabhu was also with him. So he called both of us, and he instructed us that we don't need the service of the dogs. So we understood Gurudev's intention. Then in the middle of the night, in the darkness, we chased that dog and chased out from the property. And since that day, that dog did not come back. Then after some time, then I had one day gone to Mathura, because that time there are so many problems with that property. We were in possession of 1/4 of that building, and 3/4 of that building was under the possession of a government school. Though the school was closed, but there chairs, tables, and school belongings, those things were there in the rooms. And one chowkidar was also staying there. So we are working in the government level to vacate that school from that building. So I was going to Mathura almost every day, going in the morning and coming back in the evening. And this was going on for a long period. So one day Gurudev was in Govardhan, and that day I had to go to Mathura for this work. So before going to Mathura, I had engaged one person to clean the garden because it was all jungle. So I was engaging that person to clean that garden. So I personally went and showed that person, the worker, that showed the Tamal tree and Kadamba tree. And I instructed him that you don't cut this Kadamba and Tamal tree. Then I told Ramchandra Prabhu to supervise, and then I went to Mathura. So when I came back from Mathura, I heard Ramchandra Prabhu told me that that worker had cut the Tamal tree. So then I understood that what a big mistake has been done, and Gurudev would surely chastise me. So Ramchandra Prabhu, when he informed Gurudev that one Tamal tree has been cut, then Gurudev called me. And he said that, I had told you not to cut any Tamal tree. So then I told Sri Gurudev that, Sri Gurudev, I had to go to Mathura and I had instructed that worker and I had practically showed him the Tamal tree. So he would not cut that. And I told Ramchandra Prabhu to supervise. But when I came back, he had cut the Tamal tree. So Gurudev told me that you are in charge of this place. So those who are working under you, if they will make any mistake, then you will be responsible for that. So your worker has cut the Tamal tree, so you are responsible for that as in charge of this place. And you have to get punishment for that. So then I submitted to Gurudev. So I said, Gurudev, of course I am responsible because I am in charge of this place. So whatever goes wrong, I will be held responsible. So whatever punishment you want to give me, you please give, I will accept that. So Gurudev said, okay, you go now, I will call you few minutes after. So then after a few minutes, then Gurudev called me. Then he told, okay, are you ready for your punishment? Then I said, Gurudev, I am ready. Then Sri Gurudev said, okay, this is your punishment. That the tree your worker has cut, you should go to that tree every day, pay your obeisances to that tree, beg forgiveness from that tree, and water that tree every day. So this is your punishment. Then I accepted that punishment and I did the way Sri Gurudev had told me. So then after a few days I saw the tree was growing and one small leaf was coming out from that tree. So I became happy that this tree has survived. It is not dead. And to my surprise, gradually the tree started growing and then it became a full tree. And that tree is still there in Govardhan Ashram, where we have a second gate, small gate is there. Next to that gate, that tree is still there. So that was, and I was going to that tree every day and paying my obeisances and watering that tree that time. So another time, Sri Gurudev, he was in Govardhan and he wanted to do his bhajan in the foothill of Govardhan at Rasastali. So that was after morning breakfast. So Gurudev called me and he told me that you should drop me at Rasastali. I will do my bhajan there. So that time we had no vehicle in the ashram, we had a scooter only. So I drove Srila Gurudev to Rasastali in the back of my scooter. And we went to Rasastali, then Gurudev got down and we offered our obeisances to Rasastali. Then Gurudev told me that now you can go back to the ashram. Then I asked Gurudev, Gurudev, how you will come back if I go back to the ashram? Then Gurudev said, don't worry, I will take care of myself. So then I came back to the ashram, but I was worried that how Gurudev would come back. So I was waiting in the ashram. Gurudev, I had dropped Gurudev around 10:30. Yeah, 10:30. Then it became 1 o'clock and Gurudev had not come back. And I was coming out to the road, to the gate, to see if Gurudev had come back or not, because that was the time for lunch. So then I saw suddenly one tractor was coming, and the tractor stopped in front of our gate. So then there were some people sitting in the tractor. Then I saw Gurudev was getting down from the tractor. So I was surprised to see Gurudev was coming in the back of the tractor. So Gurudev saw me and smiled. I also smiled at Gurudev. Then we both went and we served prasadam to Gurudev. So when Gurudev stayed few days in Govardhan, and then when he wanted to go back to Vrindavan, then I was going to arrange a taxi for him. Then Gurudev said, no, I will travel by the public transport. Then I said, Gurudev, public transport is very difficult to travel. It is so crowded. Though we were also traveling in public transport, so we knew how crowded it was. In the place of 2, they will put 3 people. So when I told Gurudev that Gurudev, it will be difficult for you to travel in the public transport, then he said, how Brajvasis are traveling. So I will also travel in the same way. So then we have to take to Gurudev to the stand and put Gurudev in the public transport. So I made one arrangement with the driver once that in the front there is one seat. That time that big tempo was there. So in the front, one person can sit, but they were putting 2 persons. So I gave 2 persons money to the driver, and I told him that you don't put another person here, only 1 person or Gurudev would go. So I paid for 2 persons. In that way, just tried to make Gurudev's journey comfortable. So anyway, so Gurudev was very simple, and he was living like a Brajvasi when he was in Vrindavan and also in Govardhan. So Gurudev was in this way, he was always remembering Braj, though he was staying in America and other places. He was always remembering Braj and Braj inhabitants. One Brajvasi, he was coming to our ashram, Govardhan ashram, every day. And Gurudev would love to see him coming to our ashram and taking prasadam with us. And when Gurudev would write letter to me from America, he would write in the letter that whether that Brajvasi is still coming to our ashram or not. So Gurudev was very fond of that Brajvasi. So once Gurudev was there in Govardhan, he was sitting outside of our ashram in the garden facing towards Govardhan. And then that Brajvasi came and he also started next to Gurudev. Started talking to Gurudev in Hindi. So Gurudev was relishing actually his talking. But I was thinking that Gurudev would not understand Hindi. And he's talking to Gurudev. Gurudev was chanting at that time. So I thought he's disturbing Gurudev. So I called that Brajvasi to near me. But instead of coming near me, he just left. And when he left, then Gurudev chastised me. He said, "Why did you send him away?" Then I said, "Gurudev, I was just calling him because he was disturbing you." Then Gurudev said, "I was not disturbed with him. I am disturbed by you, that you sent him away." So then I again called that Brajvasi and told him to sit next to Gurudev. So he was so much loving the Brajvasis. The way the Brajvasis were talking, the Brajvasis were living, and the Braj itself, Gurudev was very fond of. And when he was coming to Vrindavan, Govardhan, he was living in a very simple way, like Brajvasis. Like we see in Vrindavan, Gurudev's room, very small room. And he had no air conditioner or cooler even. So in that condition, Sri Gurudev was living there, and he was happy with that. Another time, when we were doing renovation, I had planted a kadamba tree in the courtyard of Gurudev, in Govardhan ashram. So when Gurudev came and saw that tree, then he asked me that why this tree is here. Then I told Gurudev that, "So Gurudev, when it is hot, the sunshine falls on your room becomes very hot. That's why I have planted this tree, and when this tree will grow, it will give shade to your room." Then Gurudev said, "Why this kadamba tree then?" Then I said, "So Gurudev, this kadamba tree has big leaves, and it can give nice shade to your room, so sunshine will not fall." And then I told Gurudev that when these flowers will come out in the kadamba tree, then it will give also nice smell. So when the wind will blow, this nice smell of kadam flower will come to your room. So you can smell the kadam flowers fragrance. And then I told that this kadamba tree is actually the manifestation of Srimati Radharani. When Krishna sees a kadamba tree, he remembers Srimati Radharani. So in the same way, when you will see the kadamba tree in front of your room, you will also remember Srimati Radharani. So Gurudev was very happy to hear my explanations. And then he did not question further. He was happy with that answer. So in this way, Srila Gurudev nice pastimes in Govardhan, and he was always meditating on Govardhan hill, Govardhan ashram, the Braj itself, and he was hankering to come and live in Govardhan, and in that way spend his rest of his life. So that's why he had told me that after coming from Mayapur he would come and stay here. Though that physically that did not take place, but still Srila Gurudev's heart, Srila Gurudev is still there in Govardhan, in his samadhi, and he's still doing his bhajan there. And on this auspicious day, we pay our respectful obeisances, and remember Srila Gurudev's mood of living in Govardhan. Hare Krishna.